The sheep scattered before the girl could finish her note. Mira Vane stood frozen in the south meadow, 8 years old, her mouth still open from the lullaby her mother had taught her the week before. The sound had barely left her lips when the air changed. Not temperature. Not wind. Something else. A pressure that made her ears pop and her chest tighten like a fist closing around her heart. She tried to scream. No sound came out. Not because she was afraid, because the sound was taken before it could exist. Her mother found the shepherd's crook still standing upright in the grass. The sheep had returned to grazing, dull and unbothered. Mira was simply gone. No footprints. No struggle. Just a single, fading vibration in the air, like the memory of a bell after it stops ringing. That was the first. 3 weeks later, the blacksmith disappeared mid-hammer strike. His apprentice, a boy named Corvin who would never speak again after that day, ran into the forge expecting to find his master at the anvil. Instead, he found the hammer lying beside the steel, the metal still cooling, and a silence so complete it felt like the world had been unplugged. The choir vanished next. 12 voices raised in harvest hymn, 12 empty chairs the next morning. The hymnals lay open. The candles still burned. The rector found a single tear-shaped stain on the stone floor, already dry. It took the village of Thornwick 3 months to understand. 6 to accept. A year to rebuild. They called it the quiet law. No speech. No music. No deliberate sound above the volume of a human heartbeat. They developed a sign language so intricate it could convey sarcasm, grief, and the precise shape of a sunset. They padded their shoes with felt. They oiled their cartwheels. They learned to weep without noise, to laugh by shaking their shoulders, to call their children home with gestures sharp enough to cut the air. And they survived. But survival has a cost. Old Mira was 91, and she was dying. She sat in her cottage at the edge of the village, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on a shelf that held forbidden things. A music box. A tuning fork. A child's shoe size small, preserved in beeswax. She had not spoken in 84 years. Not since the night her mother sang the river's lullaby and the silence came to collect. Mira remembered everything. The fire low and orange. Her mother's voice warm and low, vibrating through her chest where her head rested. The words didn't matter, she had been too young for words. But the sound mattered. The safety of it. The love made audible. Then the voice stopped. Not ended. Stopped. Like a candle snuffed between wet fingers. Mira had been 7. She was 91 now, and her heart beat wrong. A fluttering, irregular thing that reminded her daily that her own silence was approaching. Not the village's silence. Not the quiet law. The final silence. The one that didn't end. She had spent 84 years preparing for it. Beneath her floorboards lay maps, diagrams, calculations in a language of symbols she had invented herself. A model of Thornwick no larger than a dinner plate, tiny flags marking where sounds had been made and where people had vanished. 80 years of observation. 80 years of grief, refined into purpose. Because Mira understood what the village had forgotten in their fear. The monster didn't kill. It collected. It consumed vibrations, stored them, kept them in whatever realm existed beyond the silence. Her mother was still in there. Still singing. Still waiting. And Mira was going to find her. The knock came at dusk. 3 soft taps, felt more than heard, the village's standard greeting. Mira rose slowly, her joints protesting, and unlatched the door. Asha stood outside. 12 years old. Born after the last bird had left Thornwick, after the last radio had died, after the last human voice had echoed off stone and been answered by something hungry. To Asha, the world had always been silent. She had never heard thunder. Never heard rain. Never heard her own voice, though it existed in her throat like a seed buried too deep to sprout. Asha signed, "You asked for me." Mira stepped aside. Let the girl enter. Let her see the shelf with the forbidden things. Let her understand that this cottage was not what it appeared to be. Asha's eyes widened. Her hands moved fast, clumsy with excitement. The music box. Is it real? Mira's hands were steady. 84 years of practice. It was my mother's. It has not played in 84 years. Why keep it? Asha signed. If sound brings death? Mira smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had kept a knife sharp for decades, waiting for the right throat. Because someday, someone will need to remember what music was. And you, Asha, are going to help me teach them. Asha's hands hesitated. Teach them what? Mira moved to the center of the room. She knelt slowly, painfully, and lifted a floorboard that had not been moved in 20 years. Beneath it, the maps. The model. The plan. Asha knelt beside her. Her fingers traced the tiny flags, the careful notations, the calculations that covered every surface. What is this? She signed. Mira's hands moved with the precision of a clockmaker. This is how we kill it. Asha looked up. Her face had gone pale. Kill it? It can be killed, Mira signed. I have spent 80 years proving it. The monster travels to sound. It takes 2.3 seconds to fully arrive. In that window, it exists partially in our world and partially in its own. For 2.3 seconds, it is solid enough to touch. Solid enough to destroy. Asha's hands trembled. And then? And then we drop 3 tons of consecrated iron on its head. Asha stared at the model. At the church, marked with a red flag. At the bell tower, marked with another. At the mechanism, drawn in careful detail, that would release the gate. You want to sing, Asha signed. It was not a question. I want to sing my mother's lullaby, Mira corrected. The monster took her voice. It will remember. It will hesitate. And in that hesitation, we will have our 2.3 seconds. Asha's hands moved faster now, protesting. But you must sing for 4 seconds. Long enough for it to fully arrive. You will be exposed for 1.7 seconds longer then. Then I can survive, Mira finished. Yes. I know. Then you will die. Then I will join my mother. Asha stood abruptly. Her hands cut the air with anger. I won't help you kill yourself. Mira rose more slowly. She took Asha's chin in her fingers, gently, the way her mother had once held hers. You will not kill me, child. You will finish what I started. You will teach the children to sign the lullaby. And one day, when you are old, you will sing it yourself. Asha's eyes were wet. In Thornwick, tears were silent, but they were no less real. I am afraid to lose you. You will not lose me, Mira signed. You will remember me. And memory is louder than any song. If you're loving this story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The best stories are the ones we share together. The night was wrong. Mira felt it in her bones as she climbed the church tower stairs, each step a negotiation with a body that had kept silent for too long. The air was still. No wind to carry sound in unexpected directions. The moon hung low and orange, the color of the fire her mother had tended 84 years ago. She had not told the village. The elders would have stopped her, too afraid of breaking the quiet law even for a chance at freedom. The young would have insisted on helping, and more voices meant more variables, more risk, more chances for the monster to choose the wrong target. This was Mira's burden. Mira's gift. Mira's final act of love for a place that had forgotten how to say thank you. She reached the bell tower. Looked out over the sleeping village, the cottages dark, the streets empty. She placed one hand on the great bell, silent for decades, its clapper removed and buried in consecrated ground. The metal was cold against her palm. She closed her eyes. And she sang. The river flows, the river knows. The first note was a ruin. A croak. The sound of vocal cords that had atrophied for 84 years, forced to remember their purpose. It was painful to produce and would have been painful to hear if anyone in Thornwick had been listening. But something was. Where the sleepy willows bend. In the village below, a dog trained from birth to silence suddenly lifted its head, ears flat against its skull, whining without making a sound. In the forest beyond the ridge, trees shook. Something moved between them, too fast to see, leaving trails of disturbed air and bending grass. Rest your head, my little one. The church door shattered. Not opened. Shattered. A shape poured through, made of moving darkness and trapped light, of compressed silence and stolen voices. It had no face, but it tilted upward. It heard the voice it had taken 84 years ago. It recognized the melody. And it hesitated. For 2.3 seconds, it was solid. Mira sang for 4.1 seconds. Asha's hand came down on the lever. 3 tons of iron fell. The impact shook the church to its foundation. Dust rose in a column that blotted out the orange moon. Stones cracked. Windows shattered in cottages 3 streets away. And then, finally, silence. Real silence. The silence of something ended. Asha ran. Up the tower stairs, past the broken door, past the iron gate that had fallen and risen again slightly on its counterweight, past the thing crushed beneath it that looked like nothing human and everything feared. She found Mira in the corner of the tower. Her body was broken. Whether from the fall, or the monster's final reach, or the effort of producing sound after so long without it, Asha couldn't tell. But her face held a smile. The first smile anyone had seen on her in decades. Peaceful. Complete. Mira, Asha signed, though the old woman could no longer see. Mira, we did it. We killed it. But Mira was gone. Gone to wherever the voices went. Gone to find her mother. Gone to sing in a place where silence could not reach. Asha held her cold hand. Closed her eyes. And then she stood and looked out at the village gathering below, confused and afraid and slowly understanding that something had changed forever. But Asha understood something Mira had not. The monster was not alone. Where one collector existed, there were others. And now, somewhere in the dark between the trees, something else had heard a sound it had not heard in 84 years. A human voice. Singing. Asha could not sing. She had been born into silence, had never learned to make her voice do what voices were meant to do. But she could remember. She could teach. She could stand in that tower and sing the lullaby, her hands moving through the air where Mira's voice had been, preserving the shape of the melody for those who would need it. Years passed. Asha grew old. She taught the children to sign the lullaby, just as Mira had taught her. A new bell was installed in the church, but it was left silent, its clapper tied, waiting. A plaque was carved and placed at the tower's base, Mira Vane. She sang so we could remember. And one evening, when Asha was as old as Mira had been, she sat with a child in her cottage. The child's hands were small, clumsy, still learning. But they were eager. They wanted the story. They wanted the song. Asha signed the lullaby one more time. Her hands moved slowly, gracefully, the river flowing, the willows bending, the mother rocking her child. The child watched, entranced, and when Asha finished, the child looked up and signed a single word, again. Asha smiled. She began again. And somewhere, in the dark between the trees, something listened. And waited. And learned. Because the monsters may take our voices. They may take our sounds. They may consume the vibrations that make us human and store them in whatever realm keeps the stolen things. But they cannot take what we remember. They cannot take the shape of a song in the air. They cannot take the love that makes us want to sing in the first place. The last song ever sung in Thornwick was not the last song. It was the first song of a new silence. A silence that knew it would not last forever. A silence that waited and planned and hoped. A silence that held its breath and listened and was ready. The song is not over. It has only learned to be silent. If this story stayed with you, leave a like and let me know in the comments, should Asha sing the lullaby when the next monster comes? Subscribe for more stories that turn silence into sound.